All right, guys, our guest tonight is a wrestling legend, Mr. Ted DiBiase. How you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Listen, I can't complain. Listen, we got you on the line, so I'm very excited. But it's pertinent that we have you on the line tonight. Today, the WWE released Legends of Mid-South Wrestling, the DVD. You're on the front cover. That's a big honor. How did you feel about finding out you were on the front cover?
Well, I mean, as much time as I spent in Mid South, I wasn't surprised. I started my career in Mid South, and I actually spent the better part of the first 12 years of my career in Mid South, except for like there was a stint in Texas, and then up in the Kansas City area for a short time, and then Georgia, and my first time to New York. But other than that, I pretty much was in Mid South.
All right. Well, talk about you. You had, like you said, a storied career in Mid South Wrestling. Talk about as somebody who is going to look at this DVD, as somebody who wasn't around during that generation. What am I going to expect from this? What can I expect from you in Mid South times?
Well, I think the thing that will probably surprise some people is that, and of course, I haven't seen it yet, so I'm not sure what matches they have of mine. But for the better part of the early part of my career, I was a babyface. I was a good guy, and and WWE fans don't remember me as being ever a good guy. So I was a babyface for a while, and then actually I turned heel the very first time when I shoot in an angle with Junkyard Dog. But I think one of the things that's on the DVD is a match that Ric Flair and I had, where I had been a heel for a very long time, and Bill Watts, in my opinion, was just his knowledge and psychology of the wrestling business are remarkable. I mean, he turned me back babyface in one night. It was like a scheduled match. Somebody gets a shot at the world heavyweight champion, and it's it ends up being me. And just as this match is about to start, Dick Murdoch comes out and interrupts, and everybody knew that me and Dick Murdoch had a history. Like kind of like I was his protege. He broke me into the business. Well, he brought me into Mid South when I first started, and everybody knew it. And so he comes out and basically says, kid, this is my time. It's not your time. And I said, your time. I said, your time is way past, pal. I said, hit the road. And of course, he busts me open before the match starts. And so I go back to the dressing room, and they take me up and do the old Spirit of '76 thing, where I guess there's not going to be a world title match here tonight, and then I come out to the ring and have this match, and I'm bleeding. And what really made it uh, exceptional was I actually really hit myself pretty hard with the blade back when we were bleeding, and this thing actually, the bandage came off, and every time my heart would beat, it would just shoot. It was just and anyway, by the time we get to the end of the match, as a babyface, my finish was I would do a funk spinning toe hold into a figure four leg lock. And of course, Flair's finish has always been the figure four leg lock as well. So I go for this move, and he kicks me off. I take a bump over the floor to over the top rope to the floor, and I get counted out. But it's like in the minds of the people, it was the most valiant fight of my life. And of course, the whole thing with Murdoch turned me babyface, and then Murdoch comes out, and it looks like he's going to help me up off the floor, and he picks me up and he gives me a brain buster on the floor outside. So it started another program. It was one of those matches that you go, oh my gosh, wow.
That's a great story. Mike Chiari, got next question?
Yeah, you talked a little bit about your initial heel turn in Mid South, and obviously you're now known as one of the greatest heels in the history of WWF. And you've often said that while you were portraying the Million Dollar Man gimmick in WWF, you got to live that lifestyle outside the ring as well. So I was just wondering, what are some of the most memorable things that you maybe had the pleasure of doing in that regard during your time as the Million Dollar Man?
Well, it's just that the way that everybody I think would agree that Vince McMahon, although he doesn't get it right every time, he gets it right most of the time. and he's a marketing genius. I mean, the way he's marketed wrestling is just incredible. And one of the things he told me is one of the ways we're going to market your character. Of course, they did vignettes and all that stuff, but he says nothing spreads faster than word of mouth. And he said, so every time the people see you, they are going to see the picture of, well, we're going to fly you first class everywhere you go. Expect you to stay, and you won't be staying anymore. There's no more Red Roof Inns. It'll be the Hilton, Hyatt, and the Marriott, and every time you walk out of a hotel or out of an airport or out of a Coliseum, people will see you getting into a limousine. And then they gave me flash cash, is what Vince called it. It's kind of like every time you reach in your pocket to, whether you're buying a newspaper or a cup of coffee, people see a roll of $100 bills. And of course, that could be dangerous, depending on where you are. And he said, for example, he said, you'll have to pick your spot, and obviously, don't go into the most expensive restaurant in Manhattan and there's 50 people in there and say you're going to pick up the tab. But, you pick your spot and you're having breakfast or lunch or dinner somewhere and there's a few people in the restaurant, and he said, stand up and just announce yourself and say, hey, I'm Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man. I'm in a particularly good mood tonight, and because of that, dinner's on me. And go and have Virgil go around and pick up everybody's check. And he said, pay for it, bring me the receipt, and then I replaced the money. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, it was just, that was fun. And, of course, he also added to that, if you abuse it, you'll lose it. So he says, I don't want you to be, he says, obviously we want to do this and have some fun with it, but don't be going nuts. And I never did really abuse it. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I never saw you at my restaurant. Jeez Louise, why can't that happen? Brandon Galvin, next question.
Yeah, Ted, we've had debates on this show about who the most misused performer in WWE history is. And the majority of the panel immediately said Ted DiBiase, $1 Million Man. Do you think WWE, especially after hearing a story like that, do you think Vince McMahon and WWE missed a big opportunity to push you further as a top tier heel in the company?
Well, I was a top heel in the company for a long time, and whether I was, when I moved over and was a tag team with Mike Rotunda, we were the top heel team. One of the things everybody asked me, and I said, well, it just seems like from having been one of the all-time greatest heels, you were never the world champion, whether it's the NWA or the WWE. And they said, don't you regret that? And I said, well, maybe, I guess to be able to have had a career that I had, and let's say that at some point that I actually was the heavyweight champion of the world would have been great. I said, but here's what you got to understand: wrestling it's a business. It is show business, and wrestling championships are props. Now, it's true that most of the time the guy that's wearing the world heavyweight title is an extremely good wrestler. But again, it's what and so, for example, the first WrestleMania I had, WrestleMania 4. Initially, the thought was that I would win that tournament somehow, underhandedly, screw Hogan out of it, and then have the run. Of course, at the end of the run with Hogan, you lose the belt, and Hogan's the champion again, and then there's a new heel that comes in. It's kind of like you go from the top, back to in a simmering stage. You're still there, but you're not the top guy. But it was presented to me this way. I think it was Pat Patterson. He said, Ted, what's going to give you more heat? What's going to generate more heat, which is going to generate more money? If we do what we would normally do, and that's been done 1,000 times, somehow we go this WrestleMania and you underhandedly win the title, and then you have the run with Hogan, and on we go. Or you don't win, and somehow you get screwed out of it, and then in your arrogance, you just declare to the whole world that you don't need the WWE's World Championship belt. You'll create your own. And as soon as he said it, I said, that's the ticket. I said that for me to walk out every night wearing my own belt, declaring myself champion, people will just absolutely loathe me. And I've made more money with the $1 million belt than I ever would have with the other one.
You're darn right about that. I still know friends of mine, adult human beings, who still go out to purchase that belt frequently. You know, it's good stuff. Well, let's go on to something a little more lighthearted. The $1 Million Man is a playable character in WWE 2K14 this year. So now a younger generation gets opened up to the $1 Million Man. You get to enjoy some of the fun stuff. It's part of the storytelling mode as well. So what did you think about being included in the game, and what would you tell a younger generation of fans who are going to get their first glimpse at the $1 Million Man?
Well, just have a good time. I mean, you know, it's the amazing thing is like what you said. You know, here I am. You know, you know, I haven't been in the ring physically to have a match for 20 years, and I'll be 60 my next birthday, and so you know, I'm definitely the over the hill guy. Of course, some of my contemporaries are still trying to go, even though they're almost 60 or older. But that's another story. But I just think that, you know, I'll give you an example. It just amazes me, the marketing. I was in Scotland, and so here I'm in a foreign country. I'm in Scotland, and I'm walking into their equivalent of a Walmart. I'm going to be there for a couple of weeks. There's a wrestling organization over there, an indie wrestling organization. I became good buddies with the owner, SWE, Scottish Wrestling Entertainment. And so this particular trip, this was a couple of years ago, I was staying a couple of weeks, and so I went in to buy some things. As I'm walking in, there's a little boy, and he's got his grandmother by the hand, and they're walking out. And as they passed me, I heard the little boy say to his grandmother, "That's the $1 Million Man." I almost had a heart attack. I mean, I swung around with wide-eyed, and my jaw dropped open. And I said, "You know who I am?" Now, I mean, you know, I don't have blonde hair anymore. You know, I'm 20 years older, and I'm wearing glasses. You know, I'm about 30 pounds heavier. And this kid recognized me, and he goes, "Yes, you're the $1 Million Man." I said, "How do you know me?" He said, "One word: video games." So it's incredible, the marketing, and yes, I'm thrilled that I'm included in the new game. And of course, as the $1 Million Man says, you know, everybody's got a price, and that means I'll get a pretty nice royalty check.
That's true.
So, of course, I'm always happy to know when they put me on a new game.